This is what I find fascinating, is that I found you early on. I had no idea you were. I just thought it was like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Like, who is that guy? Who is that guy? Like, you were pretty good, and we were covering a lot of the same topics later on. And wow! And then I found out who you were. What is astonishing to me is that there's this amazing just split between the positivity of your audience, the diversity of your audience, the intellectual content of your message, and then you get with a snarky journalist with an agenda. And I'm not mentioning names, but this
BBC.
This young woman from GQ.
Oh yeah.
And it
she
was
hated
just
me on site.
On site,
So
and it was
did
just
the
like
BBC lady.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha,
that was
gotcha.
Channel 4. We don't want to blame the BBC.
True.
It was Channel 4.
You were a saint. And then and she seemed, like as often, she seemed intelligent and capable of insight up to a point. But it's almost as if something had seized her mind, and she.
Oh yes, something had.
Something
That's
had.
for sure. You bet.
I think people. And
Possessed by ideology.
Camille Paglia says that a whole generation of some of our most talented young women are incapable of thought because of this ideology.
Or different thought, maybe you mean.
Or just an openness to. She couldn't, and you were saying completely like interesting, fascinating, original things, even to me who've studied these topics. And I thought, wow. And
no, it was quite the day. So I went to Baltimore.
You survived it
very
well
it
and acquitted yourself
made me think a lot that day, because I went there and I had to go out of my way to do it. Not that I'm complaining, but there's a reason for saying that. So I got there.
You had to go to Baltimore?
Yeah, well, I was talking in Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
So
there's the aquarium.
And I showed up to the hotel room where this was all occurring, and what you expect, generally speaking, even from journalists who aren't, who are more of the attack dog variety, or who maybe aren't positively predisposed to you ideologically or personally, you expect a certain modicum of professional politeness.
Right.
Because, well, you don't have to be there, and you came, and you accepted an invitation and all of that. And so even with the Channel 4 journalist, Kathy Newman, she was quite polite and forthcoming in the green room before the interview,
right.
So she would have at least that professional persona, right. Which is, it's not nothing, right? There's something to be said for going through the motions professionally in an appropriate manner. But when I walked into the hotel room in Baltimore, it was obvious that this interviewer had already made up her mind about me 100%, and that she was absolutely, negatively predisposed to me with a personal animus. And animus is exactly the right word. And there was about a half an hour photography session because it was GQ. And so I was in that atmosphere. The photographers were fine. I was in that atmosphere for about 45 minutes before we started to talk. And part of the reason that I'm so, I'm not as calm during that interview as I usually am. I'm a little bit harsher. And the reason for that is that, it just started off instantly combative. And what I should have done, you see, it's very, very difficult to be awake enough to do these things properly. And the interview progressed fine, although by the end of it, I thought that I had maybe done enough interviews for a while, because I didn't think I had regulated my temper as well during that interview as I might have. I was
You actually
harsher.
did.
Well,
for the
not
first
so
few
bad.
minutes, you were getting angry, and then she brought up a question about anger, and I just saw you kind of adjust, and then after that, it was smooth sailing.
Well, that's good, because it was touch and go, and I thought, boy, maybe you're running out of patience. Maybe maybe it's time to dial back on the interviews, because, I've had many interviews like that, and I find them and it takes me like 3 days to recover from an interview.
And then
that.
you start thinking to yourself, like, what I should have said. I should have said that, and I drive myself mad. No, but you did very well. But it's so interesting that what it told me was how parochial she was, and she lives in her own little world.